this natural disaster is incredibly consequential. The last thing we need on top of that is a man-made disaster, what's going on at the ports. We're getting pushback already, and we're hearing from the folks regionally that they're having trouble getting product they need because of the port strike. And look, there's a consortium of basically 6 owners that control all the ports from all the way to the East Coast down around the Gulf. And they've made incredible profits, over 800% profit since the pandemic. And the owners are making tens of millions of dollars in this. The last thing they need is to profit off of this. It's time for them to sit at the table and get this strike done.
President Biden yesterday discussing the dock workers strike, now entering its 3rd day, and as he said, stretching from the Northeast down to the Gulf Coast. About 45,000 union workers at those ports hit the picket line on Tuesday for the first time in decades, looking for a better contract. Joining us now, Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg. His department oversees U.S. ports. Let's just start there, Secretary Buttigieg. And for people who haven't been tuned into this, first of all, what the dock workers are seeking in this negotiation and what you see as the impacts, both immediate and long term, if this stretches on for weeks.
Yeah, so these dock workers, they're the people who unload the ships, make sure the goods get to where they're going and on their way to our homes, to stores. And they've been through a lot. If you think about COVID, this is obviously not a job that you can do over Zoom. They came in every day. Some of them lost their lives during that period. And what the union is demanding is wages that would help them participate in the enormous profits that the shipping companies have made, especially in recent years. If you start the clock in the middle of the last decade, over about an 8-year period, shipping profits went up by about 350%. The wages overall of workers in the country went up by about 42%, but the wages of these workers only went up by about 15%. Their last contract reflected a tougher economic situation. They went certain years without any wage increases at all. So right now, they're negotiating for better wages and other issues, and they have not been able to come to terms, them and the ocean carriers and ports, in order to reach a new contract. That has resulted in this strike, the work stoppage, and it's a big issue. This needs to get resolved. We've been in touch with the different parties, urging them to bridge their differences, in particular urging these ocean carriers, which again have become extremely profitable in recent years, to put forward an offer that is enough to bring the union back to the table and get this hammered out.
So, Mr. Secretary, now it's already having an impact, but we know that many of these companies and supply chains have braced for this, suspecting it was coming. But as I said, if this continues for weeks and weeks, this could have major impacts on our economy. What do you see those as potentially being, and how devastating might they be?
Well, that's right. The longer this goes, the more economic impact you're going to see. Look, if you just think about the pace of ocean shipping, obviously something you're expecting to get overnight isn't something you're sending in an ocean liner. But it doesn't take long for this to really have an impact. Our supply chains are all interconnected. Now, a lot of the retailers, the stores, they did see that this might be coming. This is an issue we've been tracking for months. And so some of them rerouted to the West Coast, or they front-loaded their orders and got more things into the warehouses earlier this year. But still, you simply can't have supply chains operating well unless these ports on the East Coast and then the Gulf Coast are up and running. And the longer this goes on, the more we're going to start to feel that impact. Remember, part of how we got inflation back under control, part of how we saw inflation go from its peak of about 9% post-COVID back into the 2% range that we're seeing now, part of that was getting our supply chains to flow more smoothly, keeping shipping costs under control. That said, I have to emphasize, part of what was going into those higher shipping costs was these fees that the ocean carriers were charging. They have become unbelievably profitable. There was one year, just a single year, where one of the owners, a single shareholder, saw his net worth go up by $14 billion. That's one guy. And in that same year, that was one of the years when the dock workers actually did not see a wage increase. So you can see some of the dynamics that are going into the position that the union has, and the real need to have them participate in that. But we think that's doable, and bridging that gap will bring benefits for the entire economy, especially, as the president mentioned, when you consider the issue of the disaster relief going on right now. That's already a colossal challenge. The last thing you need is anything else that would complicate that.
And also at the center of the dock workers' concerns is automation, something that almost every industry is grappling with right now, and how to balance human jobs with automation. You mentioned the natural disaster down through the Carolinas and Georgia and Florida and Tennessee. I think the devastation gets worse the more we see as we get cameras and we get drones into some of these areas. It is truly breathtaking to look at this. And from a transportation point of view, what are you seeing and hearing as effectively parts of our country have been cut off from the rest of the world? We're seeing collapsed highways and roads and bridges across the Southeast.
The devastation is shocking, and certainly transportation is one of the areas that was hardest hit, and one of the things that most needs to be restored. Whether we're talking about major routes like I-40 and I-26, still dozens of miles where there are closures there, although it's significantly down in terms of the numbers of miles closed compared to a couple of days ago. But you got those interstates. You also have these roads and bridges in rural communities, mountain communities, the kinds of places where if a bridge gets taken out, you might be half an hour away or more from the next bridge. And so the people who are bearing the brunt of this are really facing the consequences of that. We've been in close touch with the Departments of Transportation of all of the affected states, including North Carolina's DOT. They have signaled to us that they're coming in soon with a request for emergency relief funding, and we will turn that around in a matter of hours, because we've got to make sure that funding is not an obstacle. We've also got personnel helping with technical assistance, coordination, all of the different things that could help them. We even have a tool that helps emergency responders get our data on where the routes do exist. So if there's a clear route for responders to use to get into an area where a lot of the normal roads and routes have been obstructed or destroyed by the storm, we're providing that kind of data. I was at the FEMA Command Center a couple of days ago, received a briefing alongside Secretary Mayorkas. The level of coordination and dedication going on out there is incredible. It's inspiring, but the scale of the damage and the scale of the pain, even now, I think is only becoming clearer and clearer, and it's just absolutely shocking.
Yeah, many of these communities don't even have fundamental needs like running water or electricity. You start there before you even think about the recovery, which is going to take years. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, thanks so much for your time this morning. We always appreciate it.
Thank you. Glad to be with you.